Good evening and welcome to this regular meeting of the Temple City Council for Thursday, August 4th, 2016. Please rise as Councilmember Morales leads us in the invocation, followed by our Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Kevin Beavers.
Join me, please. Almighty and gracious Father, we come to you today with humble hearts to thank you for your blessings, to thank you for your love and for your Son, Jesus. We ask, Father, to give us the strength and wisdom to make the right decisions that will benefit our community. Let us know when to speak and when to keep silent, to know when to act and when to refrain. Let us have an open heart and mind in our conversation, and when we need to make decisions that will bless our community and please you. Father, we ask blessings on all our citizens, our leaders, our city council, our military, our law enforcement, and our families. Keep them safe. Bring peace in the hearts of all men and women, and bring peace to the world. We ask this in your precious Son, Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
Join me in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you both. Now is the opportunity for public comments. Any citizens who desire to address the council on any matter may do so by signing up prior to this meeting. Please limit comments to 3 minutes. No discussion or final action will be taken by the City Council. And we have Judge John Burrows signed up.
I'll speak to the public hearing on the budget.
Perfect. Item 3, if we could have a very special proclamation to recognize Sarah Crowder as Miss Temple. Would you like to come up here? Tomorrow I'm going to give myself a proclamation that says I just had my picture taken with Miss Temple. So anyway, we're very excited. We're very excited for you. And after I read this, if you'd like to tell us a few things about the competition and what you're doing, that would be great. Whereas the City of Temple is proud to recognize Sarah Crowder, who will represent Temple in the upcoming Miss Texas USA pageant on September 2nd through 4th, 2016 in Houston, Texas. Whereas Sarah Crowder is not your average teenager, she currently holds the title of Miss Temple USA and sets a positive example for young people. As a Temple resident and a Harker Heights High School graduate, Sarah ranked in the top 4% of her class and will be attending TCU this fall with a pre-law track. Whereas, after raising thousands of dollars, Sarah traveled to Haiti to help build a school for impoverished students and is heavily organized with Build On Central Texas, the local chapter to a national organization that helps promote education globally by building schools in impoverished countries. Whereas Miss America started somewhere on a local stage in a hometown community or university, and it all begins here on the local level. And whereas the City of Temple is very honored to have Sarah Crowder represent our community at the Miss Texas USA pageant. Now therefore I, Daniel A. Dunn, Mayor of the City of Temple, Texas, do hereby recognize Sarah Crowder, Miss Temple USA, and I encourage all citizens to recognize Sarah for her hard work and desire to see her dreams become a reality. The City of Temple wishes you great success as Miss Temple and all of the other opportunities this title brings to you. In testimony whereof, I witness my hand and the seal of the City of Temple, Texas, this the 4th day of August, 2016. Thank you
so much.
Would you like to say a few things?
I first want to say thank you guys so much for offering your support to me. I know that a lot of times when people go at large, it's hard to see that support in such a small community, whereas in Dallas or Austin or in the big cities, whoever is representing the city is everywhere. Everyone knows her. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to even be able to talk to you guys. I really appreciate it.
One question, what's your talent?
Oh, I don't have to have a talent for Miss USA.
That's good. Thank you for being here. Now it's time for recognition of the City of Temple Employee of the Quarter and Employee of the Quarter finalists for the third quarter of 2016. Ms. Myers.
Thank you, Mayor. I have the pleasure tonight of presenting to you the Employee of the Quarter and our finalists for the third quarter of 2016. This quarter, we had 3 finalists. I will ask that our finalists please come forward at this time and allow us to recognize you. Our finalists include Karami DeLeon. She is our Accounts Payable Specialist in our Purchasing Department, and Holly Lieferman, our Special Event Coordinator in our Parks and Recreation Department. Our third finalist was Corporal Chris Michelli, who is in the Training Division on our Police Department. Unfortunately, he was not able to join us tonight. And then our Employee of the Quarter for this quarter is Wendy Woolley. Wendy is a Community Service Records Technician in our Police Department. Wendy has broken the record for the number of her coworkers who nominated her. She had 13 police officers nominate her for this quarter's award. So she has truly made an impact in her department. Wendy was nominated for her above and beyond work in the implementation of the department's new records management system. She has really taken a leadership role in that project and has gone out of her way to assist the officers in learning that system. And it was very clear from the 13 nominations that that was really helpful to the officers. They appreciated it. And Wendy just obviously represents one of our finest employees. So if you will join me in congratulating Wendy, Karami, and Holly. And Mayor, I think we have a proclamation. Would you be so kind as to read that for me?
Indeed.
Thank you.
Whereas Wendy Woolley was hired by the City of Temple on April 14, 2008 as CST2 for the Temple Police Department. Whereas Wendy is an outstanding employee who goes above and beyond her regular job assignments, does exceptionally great work, and demonstrates a positive attitude toward work responsibilities, coworkers, and citizens. Whereas Wendy continually demonstrates a positive can-do attitude, receives positive feedback from supervisors, coworkers, and citizens, and regularly goes the extra mile. And whereas Wendy has been nominated by her peers and selected by the Employee Engagement Committee to be recognized as the Employee of the Quarter for the third quarter of 2016. Now therefore I, Daniel A. Dunn, Mayor of the City of Temple, Texas, hereby recognize Wendy Woolley for the excellent service she continues to provide, and hereby thank and congratulate her on being named Employee of the Quarter for the third quarter 2016. In testimony whereof, I witness my hand and the seal of the City of Temple, Texas, this the 4th day of August 2016. Ladies, y'all are a wonderful example of all of the employees that we have here. And I'm just going to say this because I've wanted to put this actually on the record, and you know where I'm going with this. Holly Lieferman was my former boss when I was in college, when I worked during the summer at Cavender's Boot City, because I needed some help looking taller, and cowboy boots were the way to do it. And Holly, I'm sorry you didn't win, but paybacks are tough. So anyway, you're great, and no, it really wasn't wrong. It was just a joke. Anyway, thank you all for being here. I have a budget item. A public hearing, receive a presentation by the city manager and conduct a public hearing on the proposed 2016-2017 operating budget. And B, discuss proposed tax rate and consider adopting a resolution scheduling the adoption of the proposed tax rate for August 26, 2016. And I will start off with Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the beginning of the next phase in our process of approving a budget, and I want to begin by just thanking a bunch of folks who've worked on this, and beginning with council through your adoption of a strategic plan, mission statements, and things like that that guide us every day in preparing the budget, but also to the department heads and division heads of the city who have submitted budgets that I think really do support your vision for the city and the goals we've set. And then in particular, Tracy and her staff, Jennifer Emerson and our staff have worked countless hours literally putting this budget together. And then in our office, Bryn Mawr, so thank them for all of that. So this is our first of two public hearings that we have on the budget. I want to just kind of tell you, give you a look at where we are in that process, the timeline, the calendar. I've already told you that in putting this together, we're guided by your vision and your direction, and so I'll talk a little bit about that, just give you an overview of the funds, and then just hit a few highlights of the budgets, and then I'll turn it over to Tracy, and she'll talk about the property tax part of this process. So again, this is the first page of our calendar as we adopt the budget, and as you know, this is a lengthy process. We're about 6 or 7 months into it, and began with several retreats, department heads, and with the council. Today, I've circled the date of the first public hearing on the budget in our CIP. So we're nearing we're in the home stretch of the budget process. This slide just kind of is our reminder of the mission statement, vision, values, and areas of focus that are contained in our plan, and that really does guide us as we put together a budget for your consideration. And then back when I met with the council at our retreat on the budget back in February, I indicated that these would be the principles that sort of guided my own efforts working with department heads to put together a budget, that I would try to maintain or improve our services and service levels to the public. Certainly want to protect and preserve our workforce, which is our most important asset. The way that we've been able to do the things we do for this community is to grow our tax base and our economy, and so we certainly want to foster that. And finally, want to preserve and enhance our facilities and infrastructure. It doesn't make sense to pay for improvements and not maintain that. And we try to do all of that. Obviously, there are many things we can do, but we have to do that bound by fiscal soundness and restraint. So that's the process we went through to put this budget together. So this is a look at overall the many funds that make up our budget, and as you can see in the bottom, our total budget this year for our proposed for 17 is about $141 million. That's an increase in revenue on the revenue side of about 3.25% over last year. On the expenditure side, the proposed budget is about $143 million, and expenditures are up a little less than that, so about 1.86%. You'll notice the general fund at the top, about 70 plus million. That does include the use of some anticipated undesignated funds that we'll have at the end of this year. As we try every year, we anticipate that because we are very conservative in how we budget our revenue, and conservative on the other end, and we tend to overestimate our expenditures, that we'll have some undesignated fund balance. And in your financial policies, you've allocated or allowed us to use those for certain things, such as our strategic investment zone grants for downtown and other areas, and also our matrix funding for TDC. So that's a quick look overall of the funds that make up the budget. So in the time we've got before the public hearing, I'd like to talk about parks, recreation, community development, solid waste, transportation, utilities, some other highlights in the budget, and I'd like to finish up with public safety because I've spent a lot of time on that. Parks and recreation, as you know, last year our voters approved a parks bond about $27.5 million. We are in the first year, and we have made great strides in beginning to build out those park improvements. This year's budget for 17 reflects some increased capital equipment cost and some increased O&M costs in that budget. And I've listed the parks there where some of those improvements and O&M costs are going to be allocated. Community development, we continue our efforts to improve East Temple and downtown and through our community development block grant program and other programs designed to improve housing, infrastructure, and demolition programs of substandard structures. Solid waste and recycling, excuse me, we are proposing the addition of a residential solid waste route, which includes an automated route operator and an additional solid waste truck, replacement of 4 scheduled vehicle replacements in solid waste. We are proposing to continue our curbside residential recycling program. As we discussed in a couple of workshops, that has been challenging, and we are in the process of we've recently amended our agreement for a short-term interim, but we're continuing to work towards a long-term arrangement with our provider, Balcones. And so part of that is a residential solid waste increase of $1.25 per month. That reflects really the first increase we've really had since 2010, other than the cost in 2013 of buying some containers. And so that will both help us absorb some increased costs associated with our recycling program, but also reflect the need for an increase for the 5 or 6 years that the current schedule has been in effect. Transportation, TCIP, and the Public Works budget is, we just remind you, we're in the second phase of a 10-year TCIP. In the last year, you've issued bonds for this phase, about $40.5 million. This total program is about $120 million over 10 years. Some of the projects that we'll be doing in the 2017 budget include the Outer Loop Phase 3A and 3, Tarver Road Extension, Prairie View Phase 1 and 2, Avenue U and the 13th Street connector in the TMED area. In the first phase, you had a tax increase of about 1.25 cents. For the current phase, you have programmed in this year's budget about a 3.5 cent increase to cover that debt service for the TCIP. Utility CIP, very similar. That is a 10-year program, about $60 million. In the 2017 budget, we've got about $35 million allocated to continue that work. We're working on a fee schedule that was really adopted back in 2013, so we're in probably the final year of that. Some highlights of projects in the utility CIP that are in this 17 budget are the Leon River Trunk and Sewer Phase 2, Bird Creek Interceptor Phase 5, some water treatment plant improvements, the Temple Belton Wastewater Plant Expansion Phase 1, headworks for that plant, Shallowford Lift Station that services that plant, and the Shallowford Force Main to the Temple Belton plant construction, and finally some improvements to assist in our East Temple revitalization program, which are some utility water and sewer improvements to the Jeff Hamilton Park area. Some other highlights are we're adding a part-time maintenance worker in code enforcement to assist in our mowing crew. As you know from our discussions, we've had a hard time the last 2 years with a lot of rain just keeping up with mowing, so we're adding a person in that mowing crew. We're adding an auto technician, 2-position in fleet to assist with a maintenance of our ever-increasing fleet of vehicles. A utility tech 2-position funded through the RZ and Parks to assist with our ongoing maintenance of projects that are in the reinvestment zone. In Public Works Utilities, we're adding a environmental program technician to conduct customer service inspections for a couple of new programs. We have our backflow prevention program and our cross-connection prevention program. We're adding an administrative assistant position, partially funded through CDBG funds and general services to provide necessary administrative assistance for those activities, and a recreational leader, 2 in Parks and Recreation, to develop and promote the Blooming Temple Festival, which the city took over this past year. In Parks and Permits and Inspection, we're adding a combination building inspector to maintain the timely review of plans and inspection services related to increased growth in the community. And part of that is funded through a proposed increase in the building permit fee schedule. We have in this year's, or in the 17 budget, a full year implementation of increases for civil service positions, police and fire. As you know, every other year we look at civil service, and we implemented in the current year and a partial year, and next year's budget has to have that entire cost for those increases. We also have an allocation in the 17 budget for our performance or merit pay system for general government employees. And as you know, we are also in the middle of doing a compensation study for our general government employees, and that hasn't been done in several years, and that's currently underway. So we have a allocation in there to fund that, as well as the pay for performance. This year's budget also includes continued funding for our group health insurance plan, our employee retirement plan, and our longevity program. And we were pleased this year that based on our experience the last year or so, that our group health insurance plans, our rates did not go up, which is somewhat of a rarity in recent years in our community. And as I mentioned earlier, you have, through your policies, you allow us to use undesignated fund balance for certain things. And in this proposed budget, we have proposed capital acquisitions, about 2.4. That's everything from vehicles and equipment that are needed to computers. We have about a little over $500,000 allocated to fund TDC, their matrix incentive money, and replenishing the grant money that we use for our CIS grants of $100,000. So I'd kind of like to finish up highlights of the budget by talking to you again about public safety. And we talked about this 2 weeks ago in our workshop, but in our submitted budget, you'll remember that we have proposed funding the police department's 4 highest rated priorities for staffing. And that added 2 lieutenants and 2 sergeant positions within the police department, and allow us to backfill those positions with 4 additional police officers. We also had in public safety scheduled replacement of some vehicles, so we had 8 marked and 3 unmarked police vehicles, and we're proposing to add for those new positions 1 marked and 3 unmarked police vehicles. In the fire department, we're upgrading 3 firefighter classifications to fire driver positions to allow full-time staffing of an apparatus in Station 3, our fire truck, Rescue Truck 3. Also proposing in this budget to upgrade the fire marshal position from a captain classification to a deputy chief classification. As I mentioned in our workshop 2 weeks ago, the submitted budget was able to fund those top 4 staffing priorities, but in our discussions a couple weeks ago, we asked you whether you had any consideration for trying to fund some additional positions in the that were requested by the police department. And one of our priorities this year was certainly to enhance the department's capabilities based on both an internal and external review of the department that we had done in the past year. And this chart again shows what the department's requests were in terms of staffing, priorities 1 through 7. And the top 4, the lightest color, were the 4 positions that we were able to fund in the budget I submitted back in June, which were upgrading 2 corporals to lieutenant and 2 corporals to sergeant position. Based on our discussions, I'm now proposing that we also fund 2 additional police officers for CID. And CID, or criminal investigations, is an area that was really addressed in both the chief's internal review of the department and our external review as an area that really needed some additional staffing. And so we are, in the proposed budget that we've submitted to you, proposing to fund those priorities 1 through 5, and consistent with our discussions a couple weeks ago. So I think I've covered that. We are at this time unable to recommend funding their priorities 6 and 7, but we've managed to incorporate those changes, 1 through, adding the 5th priority into our budget and still staying within our rollback limit. And so at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Tracy to talk about the tax rate implications.
I think, could you go a few slides forward?
Yeah.
Thank you, Jonathan. We received our certified tax roll in the week of July 20th. The city's tax base increased about 3.37%. The average annual over the past 10 years has been about 4.27%. Next slide, please. Assessed value of taxable property in the reinvestment zone actually had a decrease of about 34.89%. That had to do with some additional abatements coming online, and it did also have some values did decline. Looking at our tax rate in the file budget, again, we were using estimated tax base. The FY 2017 proposed tax rate was at 66, a total rate of 66.48 cents. That included the component of the general or maintenance and operation tax of 32.34, and our debt service or interest and sinking fund tax of 34.14, the 3.5 cent increase that went in to support the 10-year, $126 million capital improvement plan. In the last week, we have received our certified roll and effective tax rate calculations and adjusted our proposed tax rate. It now stands at 65.72. The preceding year's tax rate was 62.98. The city's effective tax rate, which is the tax rate that would generate the same amount of property tax revenue for the city and this year as it did last year if you tax the same properties, that rate calculated at 62.46 cents. And then the city's rollback tax rate calculated to be 65.74 cents. And within those parameters, then, go ahead, next slide. Looked at the proposed or adjusted proposed tax rate within and the certified tax base made the adjustments necessary to our revenues and some expenses, and come up with a tax rate of, we're proposing a tax rate of 65.72. That's actually a little less than a cent decrease on the maintenance and operation tax rate. The debt service actually calculated out to be 3.66 cents for a total increase of 2.74 cents to the tax rate. Estimated monthly tax rate impact of 2.74 cents on a $100,000 taxable valuation home, 65 and over with the homestead exemption. The tax increase would equate to 0, but for the average homeowner on the $100,000 home, it would be $2.28 a month, or $27.40 a year. And that concludes my comments on the tax rate or tax roll. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Bernard, the 2.74 cents will, even though it's less than the 3.5 that we planned for the past 3 years, we are able to accomplish what we need to with our bonds on the TCIP program?
Yes. Could you back up to that comparative? Yes. The actual increase on the debt service, we had estimated to be 3.5 cents. When you take the base by the debt service, come out to the 3.66 cents, and that does support the $121 million TCIP and the bonds that have currently issued.
Council, any questions? All right. There being no questions, this item is scheduled for a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Afternoon. John Burrows, 709 Clover Lane here in Temple, and I'm speaking on behalf of Bell County, and I'm addressing a proposed change to the budget for, I guess, 20 some odd years, maybe more. The City of Temple has made a grant of $50,000 to Bell County to help us operate the help center. Out of that $50,000, we paid $32,000 back to the city for rent on the facility, and used the other $18,000 for utilities and maintenance. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the proposal in the budget this time is to not fund the $50,000, but instead to lease the property to us for like $1 a year versus the $32,000. So the net effect is $18,000 less for the county to use for operating expenses. And I would ask you to maybe reconsider that. Bell County and the City of Temple are great partners on many things. And to point out some of them, for example, the Communication Center, Bell County pays the first 50% of the cost of the Communication Center. And if the City of Temple was paying your share based upon usage, you'd be paying $1,600,000. But we put in $843,000, so you pay $843,000. The total amount that Bell County puts into the Communication Center is about $4.2 million, but your portion would be twice what it is on that. The reinvestment zone, Bell County is a partner in the reinvestment zone on that. Estimated since 1984 through 2015, the Bell County taxes that were collected that were sent back into the reinvestment zone, a little over $10 million. We estimate for 2016, we will write a check back to the reinvestment zone of a little over $3 million to go into that. We collect the child safety fees for on car licenses, and this last year we brought you a check for $77,000, and since the program began, we have brought you a little over $1,040,000 back to the City of Temple. We are currently collecting hotel occupancy tax as we prepare to expand our expo center, and as a part of our proposal on that, we will be sharing some of that back to the City of Temple, and I am estimating that I'll be coming to you with a interlocal agreement and a calculation, but I would think that the City of Temple, we will bring you a check for about $60,000. And so I would ask that maybe you consider adjustment back on the $50,000 on that. Our current operators of the Help Center have spent a little over $300,000 in utility payments on behalf of the clients that come in. We estimate that we will provide services a little over $340,000 of benefits to citizens that use the Help Center. And so that's my request.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Mayor, Council, my name is Pat Patterson, 4212 South 5th. I'd like to talk to you about two parts of the budget. One part is drainage. About 20 years ago, the city put in a drainage channel down through the Friars Creek area. Since that time, that creek has continually overgrown, and now it has trees 40 or 50 foot high, and it's collecting debris, and it's back in the creek completely up almost to the loop. The pictures I'm taking here is of a new subdivision that I've just put in. The outlets coming that were designed by an engineer are completely blocked down in the creek. In other words, the water is up above the outlets to let the water in. And so it was up to the top of Marlinwood Road and was very near coming over, and that was only in May of this year. It completely backed up, and the water backing up the street started washing all the trash cans down through and made a river right down through the entire thing. That creek really needs to be cleaned out. I met with some of the other neighbors there, and one of the gentlemen used to work for either TCEQ or the Corps, and he says that you simply have to apply for a permit, and with that permit you can move big equipment into the creek and actually clean it out. And so I offer that to you, that we need to take some action before we actually have structures that are going to go underwater if we have a very large rain. I guess we've shown you all the pictures that are involved. The second thing I'd like to talk to you about is the community development part of the budget. About a year ago, this council passed an incentives program for the Jeff Hamilton target area. We've been working and trying our best to get that program underway, we being the city and the partners in the building business, to try to get some new structures going down there. To the best of my knowledge, there have been none that have started. My intention is to start some in this fall, the September-October timeframe. But the program should be for all our citizens and all our builders. And so, you know, there must be something that's missing or not done right if we are willing to give $5,000 to $10,000 worth of benefits to a builder to build down there, and they won't go down there. And so I'm asking you, let's please get some folks together and study this. We've got about 600 to 700 vacant lots in East Temple. You continue to demolish about 20 structures a year, and we build 2 or 3 structures a year. It's not hard to do the math and see that we're not making any improvement. In fact, it's getting worse, and you're going to have a real problem in East Temple. And all of you have seen the stories in the papers about what the children are doing over there. We've got to make improvements over there and get people to moving back in there and wanting to live there. All of that is, of course, in District 1 and 2, and a good majority of it District 2. But I believe with a public-private partnership, there are numbers that will make people go over there and build structures. And I'm willing to do it myself as far as the kickoff, but it shouldn't be just me. You know, I'll be getting away out of here pretty soon and passing on. It needs to be other young builders. That's who we need to attract. So I would just ask you, as part of our budget, let's start to work on all those vacant lots that are over in East Temple. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. Anyone else wishing to speak? Sure.
Hello, I'm Jim Harrington, and I'm the fellow that Mr. Patterson referred to as the guy that used to work for the Corps of Engineers.
Do you mind stating your address for the record?
Yeah, 4712 South Fifth Street.
Thank you.
Have a house and a lot there on Friars Creek. And I guess on June 4th was our last big rain event here. And I was supposed to speak at a conference in Corpus Christi the next day. I had to delay it one day because ground was saturated, got about a 2 to 4 inch rain. Water stages, flood water staged through Friars Creek, which really is a diversion. And then it backs up into the old Friars Creek, which outlets into the new Friars Creek on my property. So I experienced flooding, firsthand in my backyard there. And the folks tell me that they had a car back there that was submerged up to the carpet, ruined the carpet in the car and stuff, but I'm trying, my point is that there's a lot of obstructions in that creek. Back 20, 25 years ago, whenever that was permitted, I was working for the Corps of Engineers, and we allowed that permit to go through without mitigation, environmental mitigation, or wetland mitigation, due to the regulations that were in hand at that time. That wouldn't happen now. In today's, you'd have to mitigate for the loss of that old stream. But anyway, the bottom line is where the road crossings are, where there's culverted road crossings and span road crossings, it's just grown up in vegetation such as black willow and poison ivy and waxleaf ligustrum, plants like that that are not native here. The black willow is native, but it's a pest tree. And if those were cleared out some distance upstream and downstream of those culverted crossings, that would make that those culverts function a lot more efficiently. So I don't believe wholesale clearing of the whole creek is needed, but strategic areas could be cleared and improved. And there's other blockages too that are in there that probably shouldn't be there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Anyone else wishing to speak? All right, I'll declare this public hearing closed. Council, there are two parts to item 5, and they both require separate specific motions, and so I would entertain a motion on item 5.1 first. And there is language on your agendas should you need to look at it.
Motion to adopt resolution setting the proposed tax rate of $0.6572 per $100 in value and scheduling the adoption of the proposed tax rate for the August 26, 2016 special city council meeting.
You could do 2 if you'd like to.
And number 2, motion to adopt resolution setting the public hearing on the proposed tax rate of $0.6572 per $100 in value for 8:30 a.m. August 12th, 2016 special city council meeting and 5:00 p.m. August 18th, 2016 regular city council meeting.
We have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary.
Mayor Pro Tem Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Pilkington?
Aye.
Councilmember Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Dunn?
Aye. Now up is a bond item, item 6, first and final reading and a public hearing. Consider adopting an ordinance authorizing the issuance of the City of Temple, Texas Limited Tax Note Series 2016, authorizing the levy of an ad valorem tax in support of the note, approving a purchase letter and a paying agent registrar agreement, awarding the sale of the note, and authorizing other matters related to the issuance of the note. Ms. Bernard.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. On May 19th at your council meeting, you had delegated authority to the Director of Finance, or in my absence, to set the parameters to do a delegation authority to sell these bonds. We later learned in the method of which we were trying to sell the bonds, that we didn't have the flexibility built in to not have a rating on the bonds or the notes, and it was more advantageous and better cost of issuance if we went to the market for a private placement without a rating. The actual notes, and so that this is tonight, we're coming back for the actual, to ask you to authorize the actual sale of the notes. In the 2016 adopted budget, it included the appropriation to purchase 5 commercial sanitation trucks for close $1.3 million net of grant funds, and also included $555,000 for major building and security improvements. Next slide, please. And tonight, this limited tax notes asking you to authorize the sale of that. The amount of the notes are $1,950,000. The source of payback, they do have a tax pledge, but our source of payback will be general fund revenues from the sanitation system. The estimated annual debt service is about $297,000, and the actual negotiated net interest cost on the private placement was 1.96%. The term and the notes are 7 years, and with the limited tax note, you can't exceed 7 years. The private placement was with Compass Mortgage Corporation. I believe Tyler Johnson's here tonight representing Compass Bank, and the delivery and closing of the funds will occur on September 1st. I'd be happy to answer any questions. We also, as I mentioned, we have Tyler Johnson. We also have Jana Edwards with McCall, Parkhurst, and Horton that will answer any questions related to the original delegation, what happens with that, and then the actual ordinance authorizing the sale. Ms. Edwards, if you have any comments?
Well, I can just say that we prepared this ordinance that was delegated. Obviously, we can't use that because there wasn't a rating on the bonds. We went for the private placement because of the interest rate. And we prepared this new ordinance for your approval tonight, anticipating the purchase by Compass Bank to hold the note itself, and that interest rate is incorporated in the ordinance for your approval. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Council, any questions?
I have a question, but you may not be able to answer it.
Okay.
How long do those trucks last?
And I might ask Ms. Seebeck, but on the front line, they last about 8 to 9 years, 7 to 8 years, or 9.
Usually we do 6 to 8 years front line and then front and back up for 2 years.
Okay.
So their life exceeds the life of the financing.
Anything else? Thank you, Ms. Edwards. Council, any more questions? All right, at this time, I'll open the public hearing on item 6. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. There being no one wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council, your pleasure on the first, or on the only reading of item 6.
Motion to approve item 6?
Second.
A motion and a second, Madam Secretary.
Mayor Pro Tem Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Pilkington?
Aye.
Councilmember Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Dunn?
Aye. Next up is the consent agenda. All items listed under this section are considered to be routine by the City Council and may be enacted by one motion. If discussion is desired by the council, any item may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any council member and will be considered separately. Council, this is items 7A through 7T. I know that we are going to need to pull items, sorry, I should have written this down there, 7L and 7R. And so if there are no questions or any other items, I will ask for a motion on items 7A through 17 minus L and R.
Make a motion for approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Madam Secretary.
Mayor Pro Tem Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Pilkington?
Aye.
Councilmember Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Dunn?
Aye. And then item 7L, consider adopting a resolution authorizing change order number 1 to the Tarver Drive extension contract with R.T. Schneider Construction Company of Belton in the amount of $9,347.50 for construction services required for extension of the proposed roadway section. And we've just pulled this for voting purposes. And I will entertain a motion on item 7L.
Motion approval, item 7L.
Second.
Motion and a second, Madam Secretary.
Mayor Pro Tem Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Pilkington?
Aye.
Councilmember Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Dunn?
Aye. And item 7R, on the second and final reading, consider adopting an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 37, Traffic, to include a general update of the chapter and changes to the 2-hour parking regulations. And I think we're just pulling this to table it.
Yes, sir. We, Judge Person has been out for a little while now, and we sent her the amendments before the first reading, but because she went out pretty soon after that, she wants to meet and just walk through the amendments and make sure that she didn't have any other requested changes.
Council, if there's no discussion, I'll entertain a motion to table on item 7R.
Motion to table item 7R.
Second.
Motion and a second. Madam Secretary.
Mayor Pro Tem Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Pilkington?
Aye.
Councilmember Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Dunn?
Aye. The regular agenda, item 8, second reading and a public hearing. Consider adopting an ordinance amending ordinance number 2002-3840, authorizing a conditional use permit on property zone planned development general retail to allow and construct an office warehouse, Lake Belton Plaza Phase 2, located at 37 Morgan's Point Road. Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Staff at this point does not have anything further to add from my presentation from the first reading, but my PowerPoint is shown and is available if council needs that.
Council, any questions or need to go back and review it? All right. This item is scheduled for a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. All right, there being no one wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council, your pleasure on the on the second and final reading of item 8.
Make a motion for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second, Madam Secretary.
Mayor Pro Tem Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Pilkington?
Aye.
Councilmember Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Dunn?
Aye. Item 9 is second reading and a public hearing. Consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a rezoning from a single-family 1 district to multifamily 2 district to neighborhood service district on 3.986 acres situated in the Maximo Moreno Survey, abstract number 14, Bell County, Texas, located at 3508 South 5th Street. Mr. Baker again.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, my staff has nothing further to add from the first reading, and my presentation is available should it be desired.
Council, anyone wishing to see it again? All right. This item is also scheduled for a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. All right. There being no one wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council, your pleasure on the first reading of item 9.
Motion. Sorry. Motion for approval, item 9, as read.
Second.
Motion and a second. Madam Secretary.
Mayor Pro Tem Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Pilkington?
This is the one I abstained on last time, so abstain.
Councilmember Morales?
Just want to clarify, is this the one we talked about the last time
We did, ma'am.
that we denied? Or did
No.
we approve?
No.
We approved this one, okay. I'm getting the locations a little mixed up, okay. Aye.
Mayor Dunn?
Aye. Scared me for a second. Item 10, second reading. Consider adopting an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 15, Garbage, Refuse, and Recycling to create Article 2 titled Construction Waste Hauling Permit.
That item, you denied it.
There's.
Okay, I'm not going to go through the whole presentation, but, I'm sorry, Mayor, do you want to read B as well?
Yes, I'll read B. Consider adopting a resolution setting the permit fee for a construction waste hauling permit. Sorry.
All right. So what we have on the agenda is the second reading of the proposed amendments to Chapter 15, which would create the construction waste hauling permit and require that for entities that are engaged in the hauling of construction site waste from residential construction sites. And again, that term construction waste would be defined as waste generated from residential construction activities. I can quickly go through those requirements again. As we discussed earlier, we did make some changes from the first reading. The proposed amendments would no longer require submission of quarterly reports or fees from those entities that are permitted. And then for the fees, we have, instead of proposing 3 separate fees as we did at the last meeting. The proposal is 1 annual fee, which staff has suggested $250 to cover administrative costs. However, council could set a different amount if you wish to. And as we discussed earlier in workshop, the alternative is to, you can deny what is on the agenda tonight, and we can come back with proposed amendments to Chapter 15 that would exempt out this type of service from the requirements of Chapter 15. So, happy to answer any further questions.
Questions? Any comments?
My thoughts from 2 weeks ago haven't changed, and I still don't feel like most of my questions have been answered. As far as, the necessity and the viability of something like this, but as it was mentioned during workshop, it's time to put it to bed, so. Even during workshop, we talked about, at the end of the day, how many companies does this affect? And we were told, well, we know of 3, there might be as many as 5, maybe as many as 17. So we still don't even know what we're regulating. That's my only issue.
And as I said earlier, and this was something you and I agreed upon, that we have spent a great deal of time talking about this, and while I don't feel as strongly as I did in the past meeting or maybe even the previous meetings, I do think that because the City of Temple engages in and is the primary or really the only waste service for the citizens, I do think that there needs to be some kind of record of it, not from a standpoint of to create more government interaction or intervention, but simply because I think that because this is something that we are offering, I think that we do need to have a record of it, and I think that I'm fine with a nominal fee of it, and if for no other reason, then I think that it gives us it gives us the idea of who's actually performing these services in the city. I think that having an idea of what vehicles they are collecting things in, their proof of insurance, and just an overall better feeling about it, because I think that this has been a problem, and obviously there is no perfect solution to it, but I think that the work that has been done has given us a couple that I think will work.
My last comment, and I promise I'm done. I
You
promise.
said you weren't gonna do that.
No, I promise. Last 2 weeks ago, I started with, so we're going to follow up with a bad rule that's already on the books with another bad rule. So we're going back to our current ordinance, saying that the ordinance states that the city is the single waste hauling entity within our city limits, and I don't think the city should even be in that business. So, in the commercial construction debris. Whenever you have large trucks running up and down every alley in the city every week, I think that makes sense. But as far as such a niche business that can't, I don't believe, again, I've never seen numbers, I don't believe is showing a positive cash flow, then why are we doing it? I'm done. I'm done. No, you're done too.
No, I'm not. I'm getting done, but I'm going to ask you a question. I'd like to have some numbers on it too. Wouldn't it be a good idea to get a permit system, so we'll find what kind of numbers there are? And then if you want to go back and...
So we can prove we're losing money?
If you want to come back years from now, when I'm long gone, then we can look at that.
Little old men?
As little
Talking
old men.
about it at the barber shop?
Yeah.
I don't go to the barber.
I would fire him, so...
I'm done. Okay. I think everybody knows how I feel about it.
I agree with Councilman Davis on both of those. Honestly, I would prefer to go to this alternative. I know it takes another couple of weeks.
Okay. there are no further questions or comments, I would entertain a motion on item 10, A and B. And again, if we go ahead.
You'll probably have to do them separately, although I had you read them together. Your motion on item A will dictate your motion on item B.
Okay. Well, then I will ask for a motion on item 10A.
If no motion is made,
That's what I was going to say.
what happens to it?
Then it would
Dies.
die.
And we go back to our current ordinance right now.
Yes. But then I'd
The-
probably come back with the alternate language.
Alternate?
Then I'll make the motion to approve.
You're going to make the motion to approve the permit system?
I am making the motion to approve.
Second that.
Motion and second on item 10A. Madam Secretary, sorry.
Mayor Pro Tem Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
No.
Councilmember Pilkington?
No.
Councilmember Morales?
No.
Mayor Dunn?
Aye. So, because that did not pass, we won't have item 10B. And would you like Ms. Landeros to come back with the alternative amendment?
I would.
Yep.
Then item 11, which is a resolution that has a public hearing, consider adopting a resolution authorizing a temporary special permit for a manufactured home placement on property for a medical hardship for elderly parents at 3205, 3265 Airport Trail. Ms. Lyerly.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. And on the screen, I have a picture or an aerial of the site in question, and it's the hatched area. It is north of the Pepper Creek Road, and it's south of Mauser Road, and it has an airport trail that loops around the property. And the zoning map in this area is, the green part is all ag district, and then the purple area is zoned light industrial. And so the existing request is allowed within the existing agricultural district, which permits HUD code manufactured homes in the ag district, normally for single-family uses. And this request is in compliance with that regulation. But just to give you a little background on the applicant's request, it is for a temporary special permit to allow a HUD code manufactured home for the applicant's elderly parents for medical hardship. The requested temporary special permit is for 143 acres of property that is currently zoned agricultural district. This is a different type of request that we normally bring to you. The Code of Ordinance, Section 2361, allows for special temporary permits within the ag district, and this particular type of permit, since it is temporary, it has a maximum term of 3 years. And Section 2361 has a list of conditions that need to be met in order to consider approving this type of permit. And the applicant meets these requirements. And basically, one of the requirements is that this is an accessory residence to a principal residence. And then the applicant needs to show proof of emergency conditions related to medical hardship. And the applicant has done that. He has submitted a doctor's letter. Also, there is an existing home on the property. And one of the conditions is that if approved, that the HUD code manufactured home cannot be used to rent out for commercial purposes. And the property has to be at least on 3 acres of land, which this does exceed that acreage. And there is a minimum separation of 50 feet from any surrounding or adjacent residential structures. Also, it requires a detailed site plan, and that's about it. requirements do allow you to impose special conditions if you see that there are additional conditions that are needed. And so the future land use map in this area, as you can see, is all shaded purple. And so that is basically recommending business park uses for this area, and then the adjacent blue area is for public institutional. And in this part of the future land use map, we have as a partial compliance. A residential use does not fit the business park recommendation for future development in this area, but in this area presently it's a rural and rural residential. It was agricultural uses. In the utility map, basically the only utilities that you can actually see on this map are in the lower right-hand corner, which is a water line main that is 1.5 inches. The property is served by an underground well, and this area is served by a septic system. And so I just have pictures of the site. The white arrow is the approximate area where the manufactured home would be placed if approved. The property does front Pepper Creek Road as well as Airport Trail. And the property to the north of this area is bordered by Mauser Road. And then Pepper Creek is off to the east of this property. And then I just have pictures for the south portion of this, south of this property, which is Airport Trail, and then the south side of Pepper Creek Road. On the screen, I have the survey, which also is acting as the site plan. In this area, I don't know if you can see on the map, but that is where we have, where the arrow is pointing, that is the proposed location for the HUD code manufactured home. It meets the separation distance of 50 feet. You can also see on the property that there is the well house for the underground well water, and then the one-story house that is to the east of that. The applicant has supplied some pictures of the proposed manufactured home if this is approved. And there's a floor plan. And then so we mailed out 10 notices. We received 2 in agreement of this request. And those are noted with the green A's. Those are both from the applicant. And so as far as compliance, as I mentioned, the future land use plan, we have a partial compliance with that, and then all the other conditions as well as compliance with the Code of Ordinance Section 23-61 do meet the compliance for this request. And so staff recommends approval of this request. And at its July 5th, 2016 meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 6-0 to recommend approval of this requested temporary special permit in agreement with staff recommendation. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
Ms. Larley, council, any questions? All right, because this is a special permit, this resolution requires a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Anyone, please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Being no one wishing to speak, I will declare the public hearing closed. Council, your pleasure on the first, on item 11. I did that on every one today, I'm sorry.
Make a motion for approval?
Second.
A motion and a second. Madam Secretary.
Mayor Pro Tem Cloud.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Pilkington.
Aye.
Councilmember Morales.
Aye.
Mayor Dunn.
Aye. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attendance. This meeting is adjourned.